Hey everyone, Sweet Johnny Cage here, back with another guide for Final Fantasy VII Remake INTERgrade. This time I'm going to show you how to take down Nero in Shinra headquarters. Nero is a long fight. There are some little cutscenes in between each phase. I've cut those out just to make this guide a little bit faster. Once we assess him, we find out nothing, or everything, depending on how you look at it. He's not weak to anything, he's not resistant to anything, but he is immune to basically every single status effect, so don't bother really casting spells on him because they're not worth the time it takes. There's a lot of work to be done, and Nero is a really strong boss, so let's get started proper. I still think it's worth it to cast a ninjutsu. Pick one, it doesn't really matter. He's not necessarily weak or resistant to anything like we know now, so I just picked Wind, seemed to be okay. He does have a lot of attacks, but you can actually avoid most of them. If you attack him during one of his named attacks, one of his abilities, or very shortly thereafter, you'll get him into a pressure state. I won't say he's impossible to stun and fully break, but you're not going to do it until much later in the fight, if ever. Alright, so when he's flying around, he can cast pinion pistols. These will more or less interrupt anything that you're doing, so you can either jump up in the air and try to get in his face and pressure him, or you can just run around and avoid it, and then maybe use that time to heal. He will also cast haste on himself, which is a little frustrating because now his attacks are just going to get even faster. He will dive down with disembowel. You can avoid this, like I said. So I'm going to use a synergized Art of War here just to deal some damage. And then once you get about 20% of his HP down, maybe 15%, the fight will transition into the next room, and then we continue on. In this phase, he's able to use Dark Torment, which is a ranged attack, sort of like a tentacle. He can also use Chthonic Surge, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, as well as Sweeping Darkness. Sweeping Darkness is basically a huge AoE attack that will interrupt you and then blast you away from him, so you want to try to be careful with that. Dark Torrent is an interesting ability that never really hit me too much, and then Umbro Shell is just sort of like bullets. But you can see from either Umbral or the other ability, some clouds went on the ground. I generally just use ninjutsu fighting with Yuffie, so I don't really have to deal with that too much. I am using a banishment there just to deal some decent damage to him. I had it built up, and he is pressured, so using a synergized windstorm will help you build that meter really high pretty fast. And then you can just sort of keep beating on him, and eventually you may be able to stagger him unless he changes phases. He will change again in about, another 20%. He can bind you, and even though Sonan does his best to just sort of stare at you, I guess, I don't know if the AI just gave up there, but right after he binds you, he will use Soul Erosion, and you'll notice after this point, your HP is more or less always ticking down. And I'm not sure if that's because of an ability, or if it's because his abilities are doing so much damage that the numbers need to take a while to catch up. Chaotic Pulsars is another attack that he has, sort of similar to the Genova ability in the original 7 Remake, and it's very easy to avoid, and this is why ninjutsu is really important for this fight, because you can basically just dodge the pillars and then just stand in place and attack him, and you're kind of okay. So Umbro Shell, this is what's causing your HP to drop for the most part. It's just sort of constantly pulling HP out of you. It's not restoring health on him or anything, but it is just sort of like a damage over time spell. So you want to watch out for that. Once Ramuh is available, highly recommend summoning him. Don't waste any time. He will deal a ton of damage to Nero and really help you out. So there's Binding Talons there again. I'm going to try to release Sonan and then cure him up once he is free. And then Chaotic Pulsars comes out again, but again, these pillars are really easy to avoid, and then you can just sort of stand in place with some ninjutsu. So once you get him down to about 50% HP, maybe like 55, he goes into his final form in the final room. You want to watch out for the perimeter of the fight because I'm pretty sure all this gunk deals damage to you, so you want to be very careful. Salvo is a tough attack to avoid. It's just a lot of damage. Spatial Shift is a teleport. He usually follows it up with Dark Ferocity, which sounds like a house from Pose. So yeah, just sort of keep that all in mind. But if you're able to attack him shortly after he comes out of these abilities or while he's doing them, you can get him into a pressure state. Go ahead and cast your synergized Windstorm. This will give him a full stagger, and then you can cast any limit breaks that you might have built up, any synergized abilities, or at the very least, if Sonan doesn't have any ATB, go ahead and cast an ability with Ramuh just to get some constant damage out. As you can see there, you can more or less dodge his physical attacks pretty easily, but eventually he will cast Dark Matter, and this is an ability that's going to deal a ton of damage, as well as sort of force you to like recover from it and not be able to deal too much damage back to him. So, luckily, Ramuh timed out just in the nick of time, and wasn't necessarily able to cancel the damage from that, but it was able to sort of make up for the time you would have lost. So, pretty helpful there. Alright, so in this final phase, he's going to cast Spatial Shift again. Going to follow that up with his Tentacles. Here's the Chthonic Surge again, so we just got to watch out for that. It's these Poison Clouds. If you're standing in them, they will explode and deal a ton of damage. He can also do that, dropped Talon attack again. He also has Winged Fury, which will cause him to fly through the room. And one really, really important thing, and this is how we're basically going to end the fight, do not forget about Sonan's Limit Break. I forgot about this so many times throughout the game, and it really does a ton of damage, and this is literally going to end the fight here. So once the Limit Break is done, if you have a full ATB, chances are he will also get staggered, and then you can just end the fight really quick. So just do not forget about Sonan's Limit Break. It's really, really easy to just not notice. But that's it. That's Nero. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to help you out. If you're looking for more guides for Final Fantasy VII Remake INTERgrade, please subscribe to the channel so you get alerted when new guides go live. If you're interested in supporting the channel monetarily, please consider becoming a channel member by clicking the blue join button below this video. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and on Twitch, and as always, I'm Sweet Johnny Cage. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.